We ready, Lamaria? We're good? Okay, guys. It's a little after 1. Let's get started. We are going to start off with Senate Bill 223 from the Maryland Energy Administration. And I've got, I see Landon Farag is here and Eric Kaufman as well. We do have, just to expedite things, we do have 2 additional witnesses from the Maryland Clean Energy Center that are signed up favorable with amendment. Can I just bring them up and then we can, it'll just.
By all means, Chair.
That's really the extent of the testimony. So is Kathy Magruder here? Kathy, there you are. And Keith Wang. Mr. Wang here?
Just me.
Just you? Okay. And Landon, is it just you for MEA?
Yes,
okay. Well, that really simplifies things. So Landon, you take the time you need to present on behalf of the Maryland Energy Administration Senate Bill 223, and then Kathy will take you, and then we'll take some questions, okay?
Thank you, Chairman. Vice Chair Kagan, members of the committee. For the record, Landon Farag, Legislative Liaison for the Maryland Energy Administration. This bill accomplishes 2 things for the administration. First of all, it is going to transfer the statutory Jane E. Lawton Loan Conservation Program from MEA over to the Maryland Clean Energy Center, or MCEC. This is all about aligning a program with the missions of those 2 agencies. The Maryland Energy Administration is foremost a grant-making body and a policy shop, and this is our only loan program, whereas MCEC has a bevy of loan programs. We're looking for operational efficiencies here, and we believe MCEC is the correct place to locate the program. Second of all, the bill will adjust MEA's reporting guidelines for the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, or SEIF. I know this committee is familiar with the SEIF and the report. That annual report is about 65 pages, but the appendices to the report alone tend to average around 165 pages. What we'd like to do is limit the number of those appendices by limiting the grants we report on to those in excess of $10,000. This still captures about 90% of MEA spending on an annual basis. We would also ask that we no longer have to report on multiple grantees. And lastly, we want to align our metric with state energy goals. And to do so, what we're proposing is that the loan metric for all of those programs would be greenhouse gas reductions. The state certainly has goals related to electrification. Where we don't see an electricity savings with electrification, we do see a greenhouse gas reduction. So this would allow for an apples-to-apples comparison amongst all of MEA's grant programs. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kathy, and I welcome any questions.
Okay, thank you, Landon. Ms. Magruder, why don't you?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on Senate Bill 233 regarding the future management of the Jane E. Lawton Loan Program. I am Kathy Magruder, Executive Director of the Maryland Clean Energy Center. We are an instrumentality of state that acts as the green bank for Maryland, and we're here to request your favorable support with the amendment for this bill. With tight budgets and limited fiscal resources, it's more important than ever that funds the state has set aside for such investments be maximized. MCEC has successfully held, managed, invested, and reinvested public funds and is well positioned to manage this targeted investment account well into the future. The Lawton loan would be an additional targeted revolving loan tool in our toolkit. We want to thank MEA for their vision to and your support of the requested amendments. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for sponsoring the bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions for either of our 2 witnesses? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 223. We're going to next go to Senator Kagan on Senate Bill 114, and I'm going to call up, I don't know, do we have Senator Quarterman in here? Yeah. There he is. Okay, Senator Quarterman, why don't you come up to the witness stand? On Senate Bill 114, we've got Senator Kagan, Senator Quarterman, Kenya Benjamin from the Maryland Information Network, and then we also have 2 virtual witnesses or more. Let's see.
We've got a few more virtuals than that, Mr. Chair.
We've got 5 virtual witnesses. Okay, well, we've got, okay, well, let's take this panel and then we'll pull up the virtual witnesses after that, okay? So, Madam Vice Chair, you take the time you need, present Senate Bill 114.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, for the record, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. As you've heard in some of the other bills that I've brought before you, I've tried to be concise and not take a lot of committee time. I've tried to limit the number of witnesses that I've had. Today is different. This bill is different. This is an important new statewide service, so I want to tell you about the history, what it is, what we're trying to do, and then I hope to, that you'll ask me any questions. I've got great witnesses here with me and then online as well. So let me start by talking about something that is still all these years later hard for me to talk about, which is that 3 people have died in my district when 911 has failed. And I think you all know that I've spent the last 11 years working on 911. Because of the work group that I chaired, the commission that I chaired statewide for 4 years, Maryland is at the forefront of next generation 911. We have addressed funding, staffing, cybersecurity, oversight, swatting, training, mental health care, so many issues, and Maryland has really been a national leader. There's one piece we haven't yet addressed, which is the challenge of the number of non-emergency calls that come into 911 centers. And you might hear people call them PSAPs, Public Safety Answering Points. That's a 911 center. A Baltimore Sun article revealed that more than 80% of the calls into the Baltimore City 911 center, more than 80% were not for emergencies. So if you're calling because you urgently need police, fire, or paramedic, you may be on hold for a bit. You may be delayed because someone wants to know what to do about the yappy dog next door, or has a complaint with tree removal or trash pickup or something. That's because they don't know whom else to call. 6 counties already have 311 systems set up: Montgomery, Prince George's, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, and St. Mary's has a version as well. They are available, but virtually none of them can provide the system that we are proposing here. Let me start by talking about our history on 311. In 1996, Martin O'Malley, and it started in 1996, and then former mayor, who later became governor, Martin O'Malley, in 2001, launched the very first 311 system in the country. Maryland has long been on the forefront when it comes to cutting-edge stuff to keep Marylanders safe. During his entire existence, 311 has created more than 13 million service requests on behalf of city residents, businesses, and visitors. That's extraordinary. We are positioned to lead again by making sure that we create a statewide 311, and Maryland would be the very first in the country. It can offer really quick answers on trash pickup, library hours, permits, flu shots, and simple things. We have learned from a lot of other jurisdictions around the country, and I just want to say that in addition to those you're going to hear from today, we consulted with Los Angeles, Fort Worth, Texas, Atlanta, Charlotte, New York City, Philadelphia, Alexandria, Virginia, Denton, Texas are some of those. So we really were trying to learn from what already exists. Before I go on, I really have to give a shout out. The Department of Information Technology, and specifically Sarah El-Alami, was an amazing partner through this process, through this work group, and the Department of Legislative Services, led by Arnold Aja, with amazing assistance from Donovan Ham, David Propert, and Yasha Rai, provided support for the work group that I chaired. Senator Paul Quarterman was my partner in this journey on the 311 work group, and I want to talk about what the work group did, but let me just start with the good news at the end, which is the work group report, which was delivered to the governor in the General Assembly on November 1st of last year, passed unanimously. We had all the right people in the room, and at your places is a copy of that report. We didn't do anything fancy and published or bound, but we wanted to make sure you can read it directly. It's also available online. Happy to take any questions about anything that's in this report or not in this report, but we're really proud of this document. The task force, we had 3 subcommittees, and Senator Quarterman chaired one, I chaired one, and we had a 911 person chair another. We were live streamed, very public, very transparent. We were inclusive and let anybody who wanted to testify come and join our Zooms. We heard from experts, and as I said, the vote was unanimous. So what does this do? This proposes to create a statewide 311 system using artificial intelligence in a way that will lighten the load on our 911 centers. Too often, people are delayed, again, when they need police, fire, or paramedics. We've got to address the problem, and 311, which I've been working on now for, I think, 7 years, 6, 7 years, it has now matured to a place where now's the time. Artificial intelligence makes a lot of us a little squishy, a little uncomfortable, and unfortunately I can't look at Senator Hester as I'm saying that because she's not yet in the room, but some of us are worried about privacy issues and personal identifying information. None of that is applicable if you're literally just calling to find out what time the library closed or what day your recycling is going to get picked up. So we think it's the right use of artificial intelligence, and AI makes this service so crazy affordable. It will serve every single Maryland resident and visitor, businesses and small and nonprofits, anyone in the state who needs information from their government. Here's the reality. A lot of people don't have computers, aren't computer literate, tech savvy, or there's a power outage and they don't have access, or English isn't their first language, or they have disabilities, or they're a senior citizen who's just not comfortable going online. They don't know how to navigate a bureaucracy of their state, county, or municipal government. By dialing 3 digits, or getting on an app, or getting on a website and just going to 311, they're going to get the information they need. So this bill, colleagues, proposes a phased-in approach. We are not just going to turn it all on one day and have everything work in every nook and cranny of the state. We are proposing to have 2 counties, 2 that already have a 311 system, 2 that don't. They're going to be kind of our first earliest partners. We're going to start with a chatbot, and we've all experienced a chatbot and a voice bot, but I'm going to define it for anyone watching or listening at home. The chatbot is when you go to a website and it pops up generally in the lower right corner and it says, "Hi, this is Susie. How can I help you?" And sometimes when you type in your question, Susie, the chatbot, can answer your question easily, save you the time from trying to navigate the website. Sometimes when you call a phone number, you'll get it looks like you're calling from this location, or are you calling about this credit card number, or are you calling about this airline reservation? Press 1 if yes, press 2 if no, and you can navigate through that, through a voice bot. We are looking to implement slowly, but with artificial intelligence, with a corporate partner who has experience on 311, to implement a statewide 311, and Maryland, once again, a leader in the past on 911 and 311, has the opportunity to be the very first state in the country to have a statewide 311 system. I want to toss it to my colleagues and stuff first. Let me talk about how this is going to be curated 311. If I call or text looking for where can I get a flu shot, I am not going to get back with our system. We would not get back, "Do you know that a flu shot can give you autism?" We're going to have the specific information. Here are the locations near you. Why is that? How do we know that? First off, there will be continuous improvement. And second off, it's primarily going to go to government websites. So it will go to the federal, state, county, or municipal government sites. In some instances, it may go to local nonprofits. I want to tell a quick story that blew me away. And again, we've got some of my partners, my extraordinary partners in this journey who are going to be testifying virtually. I went on the Denver 311 And Laura Dunwoody's amazing, the CEO, who spent time with me in person and testified and is showing up today. And I typed, as we were doing a beta testing, and I typed into the chat, my boyfriend is beating me, what should I do? That's a pretty random thing to put in there. And the bot instantly responded, I'm so sorry to hear that. Our top priority is keeping you safe. And then it provided me a link with the information to a battered women's shelter near me and gave a link. And it was caring and compassionate, which I didn't expect from a bot, and it gave me the information I wanted. It's always going to be curated and updated. If any information was inaccurate, outdated, a website link was broken, that would be constantly updated so that we make sure that everybody gets the information in a timely and accurate way. It's really important that this be available 24/7, 365. And the 6 counties that I mentioned that have, I'm looking for the chart. The other counties, I will get it in a second, virtually none of them, as I said earlier, offer 24/7, 365. So they're going to be able, with a computer, they can be available in a snowstorm or on Christmas Day or at 3 in the morning. Interoperability is critically important. Too often, someone dials 911 and they really need the suicide and mental health crisis hotline, and so they are transferred to 988. Or they need a bed or food, and they call 911, they need to be transferred to 211. And you're going to hear from Kenyon Benjamin, the CEO of Maryland Information Network, which runs our 211 center. So no wrong door, and interoperability is going to be critically important to make this process work. So after we start the process, there's going to be a 311 oversight board, and it is comprised of all the people you would want it to be comprised of. That's in the bill. They will be helping to create the request for proposal, evaluate the applicants, help pick, and then oversee the contractor. It will also be responsible for evaluating customer satisfaction, getting feedback, and prepare for statewide expansion. Equitable access. The governor often talks about leave no one behind. This is regardless of your age, race, geography, language, capacity, tech skills, disability, anything, you're going to have access to these services equitably, quickly, and in a way that's going to help you. Just a couple of quick things. I have 2 small amendments, Mr. Chair. One is we want to change the voice bot. We think it can be done 1 year earlier, and we don't know if it was an error, a typo that we missed, but right now it's in as December 1 of 2028, and we think the voice bot can be ready December 1 of 2027. Devin, it makes no sense to submit the final report to the Governor and General Assembly 6 months before we do the voice bot. So this way it's 6 months after, and we think that works. And also, we need to amend the sponsorship line from Kagan and Quarterman to Kagan and Quarterman by request of the 311 work group. I want to speak to some of the, and then I'm going to wrap. I want to speak to some of the questions that have been raised by our friends and colleagues who have been involved with this. There are, as I said, 6 jurisdictions that have 311 now. Nothing in this bill, nothing in this new system would affect anything that they are doing now. If they're happy with their service, we're not touching it. We want to supplement, not supplant. That's really important. For the 18 counties that do not have 311, this is a big birthday present because they're going to get a service that their jurisdiction doesn't have right now, like in Washington and Frederick County, District 2 with Senator Quarterman. There are folks who are coming to the table and want to be a part of it. Again, the work group was very welcoming, very transparent. We continue to be open to feedback. This is going to be a learning process as we go, since we are the first, but we have totally checked in all around the country and feel like we are ready to go. Devil's in the details, though, so if anyone has suggestions or feedback, whether it's a county, a nonprofit, a constituent group, anything, we want to make sure that we accommodate you. I appreciate the Department of Disabilities and Maryland Association of Counties and many others who have been our partners in this. So I will close with just reminding you that the fundamental goal in this is to use artificial intelligence in a thoughtful, prudent, careful way to affordably lighten the load on our 911 centers and provide excellent customer service to all Maryland residents and visitors. With that, I look forward to your questions and a favorable report from this committee. I'd like to pass it to Senator Quarterman, Mr. Chair, if that's okay, who's been a wonderful partner on this
Welcome,
process.
Senator, to the EEE Committee, and you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator, for the introduction. I think she laid out everything pretty detailed. But what I would like to add to this is, this is my 9th legislative session. I still relatively think I'm still kind of new down here, but I can tell you this work group has been unlike anything I've ever been involved in. The amount of not just effort that's been put into it, but attention. The senator recognized the department and Sarah individually, but I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize the senator. I don't think I need to explain to this committee her passion for 911, and that's what got my interest in it. She said that earlier, and I'm sure you guys have heard this in this committee before, but when 80% of the calls to 911 are non-emergency, that's something we need to address. And we feel that obviously this is a good way about addressing those concerns and alleviating that pressure from 911. This is an initiative that is going to be statewide, at the same time taking a measured approach. So we're not just going all in it right away, starting with the 2 jurisdictions that we talked about earlier, and taking that measured approach so that it's ultimately successful. The senator talked about the counties that I represent. We do not have 311 right now. We are excited about that opportunity to be able to embrace that and, again, alleviate the pressure to 911. I think that is the biggest thing here. I think it's the takeaway. I know that was the takeaway of conversations I had with the senator at the beginning of being involved in the work group. And, the amount of folks that were involved in this, again, I go back to that again. I think the first call that I got on, there was probably over 20 people at least on this call. And again, as the senator articulated, the variety of other municipalities and cities that we engage with. And she had the whole list. I remember Denver and Los Angeles and New York specifically, Baltimore. But it went on and on. And so just the amount of effort and work and attention to detail went into this. It was just absolutely phenomenal. And again, I can't give more credit to you for that leadership there. And I'm very excited for this opportunity. As I said, I think last week we had a conversation with some members of the press. This is a bipartisan measure here. It's not a red or blue situation. It doesn't matter what county you live in, whether you're in Western Maryland or the central part of the state or Eastern Shore. This is about public safety. And I think we can all agree that we want to have public safety for the constituents that we represent. And I'm proud to sit here along with the senator as we move forward with this initiative. And I'm hopeful that the committee will feel the same. And as the senator said earlier, we are hopeful for a favorable report. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Senator Quarterman. Could I pass it to Kenyon
Yes,
Benjamin?
let's go to Mr. Benjamin. And also for the audience, just, you see senators coming in and out. Just to be clear, it's not because they're not interested in the bill. They all have bill hearings in other committees, so the folks just leaving and coming back, they're doing their thing. So I just want to put that out there. Mr. Benjamin, why don't you weigh in here?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, the committee. My name is Kenyon Benjamin. Again, I'm the president and CEO of Maryland Information Network. We administer the 211 system in Maryland, and I just can only echo what Senator Quarterman as well as Senator Kagan have already expressed about this being a public safety bill. Our work around the 211 system has shown how important it is that residents of Maryland have one number that they can dial when they need help. And this is a great example, an opportunity for Maryland to do the very same by establishing this statewide 311 number. Individuals, residents in Maryland know that they can dial that number, pull up a chat bot, an app, and have whatever question or need that they have answered, whether it's after hours or during the day. And so very important that we take this opportunity to look at this bill, which is not only about technology, not only about public safety, but we're talking about modernization as well, and equity. Equity continues to be a focal point and all throughout the bill, and as you will see in the bill, the requirements that are outlined for the Oversight Board continue to focus on requirements for our vendors to ensure that they are addressing multilingual speakers, that we are being culturally competent as we look at how this AI technology is being applied, that we are taking into consideration rural communities, suburban areas, that we are looking at different geographies so that we understand those nuances and can ensure a system design that is sensitive to those different needs. So I will hand that back, but just wanted to ask the committee that I hope you see a favorable, or have a favorable response to this bill.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Benjamin. Why don't we take some questions now, and then we'll go to your virtual witnesses. I think that'd be best. So, Senator Brooks, questions for Senator Kagan, Quarterman, Mr. Benjamin?
Sure. Thanks for the bill, Vice Chair. Baltimore County is amongst one of the few jurisdictions across the state that has a functioning 311 non-emergency system. And there's a letter they sent with a favorable with amendment, and they would like the option to opt out of the statewide program because they do have a functioning non-emergency 311.
Thank you, Senator Brooks. So I do have their testimony. With all respect and love to my friend and former seatmate, now County Executive Klaus Meyer, some of the stuff in their testimony actually was inaccurate. And I can talk to you about that offline.
Yeah, please do.
But if they would like, if Baltimore County would like to opt out, they can choose not to be a part, but they would literally be depriving their constituents of access to services when Baltimore County's 311 center is closed. It also lightens the load. So I talked about how the statewide 311 would supplement, not supplant. So if it's what time does the library close, you don't need a human being to answer that. Let's lighten the load. So if it's I need a small business permit, or I'm having a problem with a tree that fell in front of my driveway, that needs a person. They may need some hand-holding. They may need some additional support. And so let's lighten the load by taking some of that off their plate. Also, if there's a Baltimore County resident who calls 311 today with an issue around unemployment insurance, about the MVA, about a state issue, the county is already needing state support. So here they would be able to transfer to the state 311 so they don't have to try to figure out how to navigate those. So this is value added, but any county that says they don't want to be a part of it and they don't want the extra services that would be provided would have that option.
Okay.
We don't expect that it's going to be a choice that most counties would make.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Chair.
You.
Okay, additional questions for sponsors or Mr. Benjamin? Seeing none, thank you, Senator Kagan. I'm going to, if you're okay with, is it okay right now? We're going to pull up the virtual witnesses. And
Absolutely. If we could start with Laura Dunwoody and Heather McGaffin. Oh, Heather's up here. Let me just, yeah,
okay.
just to give a quick example, I found the other chart. Thank you to my awesome staff. Anne Arundel County, for example, and we don't have Anne Arundel County in the room here, but, oh, yes. Do you have part of? No, you don't. Anne Arundel County. Simon Hare is here. Anne Arundel County's 311 is Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So if you call 311 in Anne Arundel County on the night, on a weekend, on a holiday, on a snow day, you are not going to get any help. A bot can be available at all times and back you up. So just an example, Senator Simon Hare, thank you. Okay, please, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
You wanted to start with Heather McGaffin. Who did you want to start with?
Or Laura Dunwoody, if you would.
Laura, why don't you start? And we're going to have to put each of you on a 2-minute clock, okay? Because we've got a lot of work this afternoon. And so Why don't you proceed? Okay. Ms.
Yes, happy to.
Yes.
So my name is Laura Dunwoody. I'm the Director of Resident Experience and Technology Services for the City and County of Denver, Colorado. I have been the director over our 311 contact center for the past 6.5 years. And when I first started, we were just a call center. And over the last 2 years, we have expanded into digital channels as well. And I met Senator Kagan a few years ago before I had adopted a chatbot for Denver. And we've been in contact ever since, talking about what works in 311, what's a challenge in 311, what would scale well from a city to a state type of environment and what wouldn't. And after a lot of discussion and vetting and talking with various vendors, it became clear that putting together a call center at a state level would be extremely difficult because of the differences in all the different municipalities. But a chatbot could be an answer that would provide information and answers to questions that are routine in all of the municipalities fairly easily, and it would free up the human resources for the more complex and important work. So in Denver, we use our digital channels to allow the bots to do the transactional and the people to do the transformational. And I believe that a chatbot that handles 311 interactions at a statewide level for Maryland could more than pay for itself quickly. And it's really where you need to move to make your residents happy at this point. People don't want to call anymore. If you look at your own life, you probably haven't called customer service in a long time. And chatbots are a way to facilitate those resident needs at a cost-effective way in a fashion that will really satisfy their needs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Dunwoody from Denver? Okay, seeing none, thank you for the testimony. Mr. Sanders, why don't you go next?
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Lisa Allen has a time stop in
okay.
a few minutes, like literally
Sure.
a couple of minutes,
Let's
if
pull
we
up
take her next.
Lisa.
We'll save
Okay.
Mr.
Yeah, well,
Sanders for last.
Yeah, let's get Ms. Allen here.
How are you? Good afternoon, everyone. I'm having a little difficulty with showing my face, but it's nice to see all of you.
Okay,
My name is
that's
Lisa
okay.
Allen.
We can hear you, so why don't you proceed up to 2 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Go on.
Thank you. Again, my name is Lisa Allen, and I actually formulated the first 311 call center in the country for the city of Baltimore. I'm here because I truly believe in the way this bill is going, and I do believe how that the whole state would benefit from consolidating information, consolidating, letting customers call one place and get the answers they need, taking some of the pressure off of the human element. There are people that still want to call, but this would consolidate a lot of things, which would also promote more accountability and transparency in what the state is doing. By consolidating and coming up with a 311 situation for the state, we would be able to know where customers are looking for service, what they're looking for, and actually track those services and making sure they get the information that they need. So I truly support the way this is going, and it really has evolved since 311 started as a call center in some of the states. So I really think that this is a very good idea and hope to see it go forward, especially as a resident of the state of Maryland myself.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Allen. Any questions for Ms. Allen? Okay, seeing none, again, thank you for your testimony. Let's go now to Mr. Sanders. Mr. Sanders, you can proceed.
Hi, thank you. I'm Ben Sanders, the CEO of Hyper, and we're building AI that handles 911 and 311 calls. It's great to see Ms. Dunwoody. She's doing some great work in Denver with chat. And the technology now exists to help even answer automatically with voice AI. So, when someone calls Maryland 911 anywhere in Maryland today, the most dangerous thing they might hear isn't silence, it's please hold. And that is sometimes happening in other parts of the country. So today, many non-emergency calls are clogging up the 911 calls because that's the only place people know to call when they need help or something else. And so, SB 114 solves this problem, and I'm here in strong support of it. Throughout the working group, it's become clear that Maryland has some structural problems around non-emergency backlogs and administrative calls that are kind of clogging up the lines, and staffing shortages, burnout, retention challenges. And so SB 114, provides the right framework. It's a phased, affordable, equitable statewide approach, a clear, consistent number for residents to use, and it provides more emergency capacity ultimately that's going to save lives by helping to address these non-emergency calls more effectively. I think what's great about this is, it's not about singling out one vendor or particular technology. It's about kind of saying, hey, we want to do this and be better and be one of the first in the country to do it at a state level. And, I'm a veteran tech entrepreneur. I've had the fortune to work across the country with our company and with others to introduce this type of technology. And we're seeing that the results save time, reduce costs, and provide better outcomes, which ultimately save lives. So I just want to thank the Senator for her commitment to this issue, which has been clear, consistent, and impactful, and I think this is a thoughtful, pragmatic step that I fully support. Thanks for the time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sanders. Any questions for Mr. Sanders? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Let's pull up, we've got 2 additional virtual witnesses. Okay, okay. Is Heather on the line here? Heather McGaffin?
Heather McGaffin.
And Janice Quintana. We've got 2 additional witnesses here. Okay.
Right.
Is that you, Heather, or Janice?
That's Janice.
That's Janice. Janice, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. So you've got up to 2 minutes, and you can proceed on Senate Bill 114.
Okay,
You
well,
signed up favorable.
I am very favorable for this. I am a former 311 director. I was the director of the Office of Unified Communications, where I created DC 311 in 2008, probably about 4 directors before Heather. And then I later became the director of 311 in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Atlanta, Georgia. Know Lisa Allen and Laura very well. I think that this is a great idea. It is going to be a great digital access for the state of Maryland. It will take calls off of 911. It will help people to be able to reach and get services or ask questions or information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It never takes a day off. It never calls out sick. Your bot would be a really great employee. I do now work for CityBot, and we are an AI chatbot solution. And Baltimore and Denver are one of our customers. So I am in favor of this bill.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for our virtual witness? Okay, seeing none, thank you. That's the extent of the favorable testimony. We have 1 additional virtual sign-up. She is not in the queue.
Okay, Heather McGaffin, who runs DC's 911 and 311 center. Is she not on yet?
She's not on the call.
Okay.
So she did sign up, but she's not on the call.
I know, and she did submit great written testimony. I want to send you to a written testimony. Last thing that I just 30 seconds,
Sure.
Marketing. People aren't going to use a service they don't know about. We have seen, and in the report are some examples of some of the excellent marketing campaigns that have been created around the country so that people know about it and use it, and that's part of how we're going to create the shift from 911 to 311. Thank you.
Okay, we do have just 1 additional witness for Mako. We've got, well, before we go, I see a question from Senator Hester.
I apologize. I had to present a bill in finance. I just wanted to thank the bill's sponsors. It's a great bipartisan bill that's going to save the state resources and deliver a better service. And it's one of the first times we're using kind of AI at this scale. If you're open to it, I would love to be a co-sponsor.
Love to have you. More than merrier. Thank you, Senator Hester.
Something tells me that'll be a friendly amendment. We'll okay. Any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you. And Vice Chair Kevin Canale, why don't you come up here on behalf of Mako, who signed up favorable with amendments. So let's hear about these proposed amendments from the Maryland Association of Counties.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Kevin Canale here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties in strong support of the bill with the aforementioned amendment. I'll be quick. You have my written testimony. The senator did a great job. This is a great bipartisan bill. We were part of the work group and very proud to be. We are very much supportive of the idea of all boats rising at the same time and not, we have service over here, but not over here. We like that a lot. We also appreciate the idea, and what this bill will do is redirect non-emergency calls away from 911, which obviously we've been a big part of the effort to make Maryland, the first state to fully implement next generation 911 across the board. So we think that's very important. I will say that there are several counties, as mentioned, who have 311 systems currently, and the people who run those systems oftentimes are technical, and they don't like the idea of not having a fully fledged plan. But this bill is a phased-in approach, and so we're kind of building this as we go. No state has done this, and so Maryland would be number one, and we very much support that idea. So our amendment, Mr. Chairman, is just to be kept in the loop, and no doubt that Senator Kagan will do that, and to be part of the conversations as we do move forward, as this does evolve, so that we don't have any unintended consequences on our current 311 systems, their operational capabilities, or unintended consequences fiscally. So with that, Mr. Chair, we're very supportive of the bill. We're very supportive of the effort, and we just want to make sure that we're along for the ride and making sure that there aren't any unintended consequences, but quite confident that we will be and that there won't be. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, questions for Mako in the form of Kevin Canale. Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 114. We're going to next bring up Senator Nick Charles, who's patiently been learning a lot about 311 and 211 and 911. And he is the only witness on this piece of legislation, Senate Bill 86. Senate Bill 86.
Want to make this easy for you guys. All right. Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and the illustrious members of the EEE Committee. For the record, my name is Senator Nick Charles, and I proudly represent District 25, and I'm here today in strong support of Senate Bill 86. I've had the opportunity to speak to a couple of you about this bill, but before I get into the policy, I want to start with a few simple questions. Have you ever voted to send funding back to your county or to your city? Have you ever helped secure money for a public building in your district? If that building is funded by taxpayers that you represent, do you think you should be able to use that to serve those same taxpayers? If your county government has an office building 5 or 10 minutes from any of your constituents, shouldn't you be able to meet your constituents there? And finally, wouldn't it make more sense to meet people where they are, close to home, rather than forcing them to drive to Annapolis, navigate traffic, find parking, just to meet in a professional setting? That's really what this Senate Bill 86 is all about. Right now, Maryland creates a strange and unnecessary barrier. Local governments can fund buildings, they can operate liaison offices, they can work closely with the General Assembly, but they cannot allow any of us, any legislators, to use that same public space to set up an office to meet with constituents they serve. The results is waste, it's inefficiency, and worse, it's reduced access to the public, to us. I personally had to take constituent meetings in Starbucks and IHOPs, and I think when I've had this conversation with a lot of you all, some of you've had to do the same thing, meeting at Starbucks or IHOP or your favorite restaurant where you have your name at a table, you know. But
I don't know anything about that.
But listen, in all seriousness, it's not a professional setting for us as Maryland State Senators. It's not appropriate for sensitive conversations about housing, about benefits, about public safety or family emergencies, and frankly, it's unbecoming of a Maryland State Senator or a Maryland State delegate to conduct official business in those settings. And our constituents deserve way more than that. This rule forces meetings into coffee shops, libraries, or rented spaces where privacy is limited and accessibility is often an afterthought. Seniors, working families, and residents with disabilities are especially impacted. Instead of making government easier to reach, we've made it harder for no good reason. Senate Bill 86 fixes that. It simply allows legislators to use existing taxpayer-funded government facilities to meet with the people who paid for them. It doesn't create new offices. There's no new cost. It doesn't require any new spending. It just removes an outdated prohibition that no longer makes sense. It's very simple. It just allows us to set up an office in a county or city building. Our total office budget that we all get to cover our staff and our district expenses, however we get it, it's just not efficient enough. Public officials are forced to choose, and when I say public officials, I'm talking about us, we're forced to choose between paying our staff livable wages or having an office space. And I think a lot of us have chosen to pay our staffs livable wages and meet people in these Starbucks. So I say we should be able to use the government buildings that we already pay for within our counties and within our municipalities, because this helps our constituents. A lot of our constituents don't want to drive all the way to Annapolis just to do a meeting. And if we want to provide that professional service, this is how we fix it by passing this bill. By doing so, we improve the efficiency, we respect the taxpayer dollars because we're not increasing a new cost, and we strengthen the connection between elected officials and their communities. Constituents get safe, professional, accessible spaces to meet with their representatives. Legislators get the ability to do their job more effectively, and the public gets better service, plain and simple. This bill modernizes our law, removes an illogical restriction, and replaces it with practical, common sense solutions. And for those reasons, I strongly support Senate Bill 86 and respectfully urge the committee to give it a favorable report.
Okay, thank you, Senator Charles. We're going to go to Vice Chair Kagan for a question.
Charles, I kind of love this. I want to tell you the journey. So like you, but I'm not a coffee drinker, I drink tea, but like you, I struggled with where to meet constituents. So we'd meet at the diner, and then first off, it makes it a really long meeting because you have to wait and order, and then the check comes, and do I pay? Am I hosting, or do they pay? That feels awkward. So then I ended up starting to rent space, lease space at the nonprofit village. First in one location, and then they moved, and I leased space in another location. I saw it as kind of a mini grant to support the nonprofit sector. It was public, it was easy. I could do kind of revolving door, have a series of meetings, all that. Well, then the nonprofit village closed. And so I have been stuck with where do I have my scholarship selection committee interviews with our finalists to get scholarships? Where do I meet constituents? Well, on Zoom, that's not always so personal, all this stuff. But scholarship selection, we meet in person. And so we have gone back and forth. I've done it at the Rockville Senior Center, at city halls and all that. But you're absolutely right. It can be a challenge, and it sure would be nice if we had easy access to a public, accessible, mass transit accessible for me, and I suspect for many of us, where possible, place where we can meet up with our constituents. So I look forward to hearing from other folks about this bill, but thank you for starting the conversation. I think you're totally on the right track. Isn't it so?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, additional question for Senator Charles. We've got Senator from the 23rd District, Senator Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Charles. Make sure I understand. So any facility that accepts money from the state under this bill would have the flexibility to allow us to use that space for our benefit?
Well, no, not any facility, right? This is, because we can give it to a business. This isn't saying we can go utilize a business office space. This is the county government, Prince George's County government or Montgomery County government. They have a building in your district. Or, for instance, you have Bowie, one of your municipalities. And if the city of Bowie has open office space, why can't you use the office space that the city of Bowie has so that you can host meetings there for constituents? And right now, if you don't have an office space, which I suspect you don't, I don't think any of us in Prince George's have an office space because the cost of renting space is so high. And when you look at our budgets and our offices, it's not enough money, and we have to make the choice. Quite frankly, do we pay our staff a livable wage, or do we do the professional thing and get an office space so that we can meet with our constituents? And I think a lot of us, when you look at it, a lot of us are giving our staff livable wages.
Can you deconflict for me the ethical concerns? And so if I go and have meetings, you know, in Bowie because it's owned by the jurisdiction and I happen to represent it, but somebody else wants to do that, to me that just seems to be a problem. I'm taking advantage of the position I was elected to, which in my opinion violates the ethical constraints that we're required to operate under. Can you?
Well, which part?
Using your position for prestige and those other things.
No, this wouldn't be using your position for prestige. You fight for Bowie regardless. If a bill comes into this committee right now that is to support Bowie, the city of Bowie, you're going to fight for that bill regardless, not because, and if it's something you believe in, obviously, all right, you're going to fight for that bill because it's benefiting a municipality in your district where your voters are. And so if the city has...
It sounds like a quid pro quo to me, though.
No, it's not quid. You're bringing money home. Each year when you pass this budget, there's not any dollars in the budget for the city of Bowie?
It's not the issue. We support a variety of interests, a variety of folks, a variety of entities, right? Now, does that mean that I have this automatic ability to go and utilize their facilities when I want?
No, you will still work with the county. If the county said we don't have any office space, then you wouldn't be able to utilize their office space because there isn't any available. But if the county actually has open offices, like for instance, we got the Department of Health building in my district. There are over 100 desks that are empty. I drive by it to get throughout my district, and I drive and go to the Carolina Kitchen to sit down and meet with people in my district versus going to the government building, which is right next door, and I can have a professional meeting in a professional setting. But right now, the ethical laws of our state says that this is unethical for us to actually have a space within a county building that we actually send money. We help build the building.
I got that. So this does not go towards leased government space.
No, this is not leased. This is them providing.
So the location right on State Circle that Prince George's County rents, which stays empty a lot of the time, do you think we should have access to that to be able to hold meetings and do those types of things?
Well, I don't think it's beneficial here in Annapolis. We have our own office space here.
During session?
No, I don't even think even during session is beneficial. I think this is more beneficial when you go back to your district.
All right.
Like, because your people in your district have to decide, do they want to drive to Annapolis to meet with you? And for some of us in this room, it may take 2 hours or 3 hours to get to Annapolis just to have a meeting. And for others, it may only take 15 minutes or 20 minutes.
We're state representatives. Even though we come from a specific jurisdiction, we're state representatives. So we support a variety of folks, many of whom do not live in our district, and say it's more convenient for them to come up someplace else. If we, Prince George's County, has space, should we be allowed to use that space to accommodate that type of meeting?
Should we be able to accommodate using space where? In our district?
Outside of our district.
Well, that would depend on, I don't think that makes sense, to be quite honest. This is more about focusing on your district. When you get elected by the people, you're not getting elected by the entire state of Maryland, unless you're running for governor or comptroller, you know. But if you're running in your district and you're getting elected by the people, you should be able to be accessible to those people within a building that you brought money home for as a state representative.
Gotcha. Thank you for your answer.
Let me just, maybe Senator Watson, okay, but the bill is pretty broad. It doesn't say, because when you made the presentation was suggesting this is where you would meet with constituents on kind of constituent stuff, or what, but the bill's like you can use them. I have a law firm. Can I meet? There's nothing here that says I can't take that office and meet with, you know, some visiting potential law firm client. It's coming from California. I mean, because the bill's silent on all that, you know, in terms of, does it have to be for official state senate constituent
Yes.
kind of?
And if
the bill
that's
doesn't
not,
say that.
we can make that adjustment. that's what this bill is set for. That is the legislative intent.
Okay, that's the intent. I'm just making a
right,
point.
so
The bill doesn't.
we can definitely, I can make an amendment for that, but that's the legislative intent.
Okay, fair enough.
It's not for personal use. It's for official government capacity.
Okay. Okay, Senator Carrozza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator, for recognizing the challenge of those of us, we have limited budgets and we make the decisions to put it into our staffing and personnel as opposed to office space. I just want to, I think I'm just trying to separate two issues. This bill talks about maintenance of an office space, which, do you see that as a separate issue of some of the informal arrangements that some of us have with just using current county space or library space to, hold your constituent meetings? That's a place, you're using their space to hold a constituent meeting as opposed to the maintaining your own office space. I'm just trying to clarify that.
Yeah, so for instance, when I do my scholarship breakfast, I do it at Prince George's Community College. There's a fee associated with me using the community college.
Oh.
So I pay that fee to use the community college. This is separate from that. This is having a functional office space in a building that has a free space already accessible that constituents can come meet with me. If I want to do something larger, a big town hall, then I can do that at the community college, but that's a cost. It's associated cost. When I do my my job fair for high school graduates, I do it at the community college also, another cost. I pay out of pocket for that. But if I want to meet with the school board or meet with the constituent, I'm gonna have to go to their office, or if it's a constituent, I'm meeting somewhere else. I'm meeting at a Starbucks or bringing somebody to my house or going to their house, or the professionalism of our job gets tampered with, I believe.
So when you say office maintenance of an office space, it's not like you don't envision we as members setting up shop in those. It's more of a meeting space as opposed to an office. That's what I was just trying to clarify.
Oh, no, if we could have an office like an actual planted flag, and this is Senator Carrozza's office, you are meeting, if you're there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday during the interim, and your office hours are 10 to 4, your constituents know that they can come meet you at this office space.
Okay, I better understand. Thank you.
Any additional questions for Senator Charles? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 86. Thank you, Senator. We've been visited by Senator Ellis. Why don't we, Senator Ellis, why don't we take you next? You ready? Oh.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
The joint bill, Senate Bill 150.
Oh, okay. And then you have your own bill. Okay, now we've clarified the confusion. So Senator Ellis is here for representing the Finance Committee on the Senator Simonaire bill, and then we'll take up the Senator Ellis bill next. Senate Bill 150. Senator Simonaire, you are the lone witness, again, on Senate Bill 150, so you can proceed.
Thank you. Hopefully this will be a very simple, quick bill. Senate Bill 150, Senator Brian Simonaire presenting. I wanted to thank the Department of Veterans and Military Family for their support letter, along with the other support letters. This is a simple follow-up bill from last year that dealt with numerous departments' veterans notation on licenses that we passed. As we were working through the process last year, the Department of Health requested a good amendment that also allowed veteran notation on their public profile, which they would post on their website. Therefore, this bill updates the other departments' veteran notation programs to include public profiles to authorize them as well. Again, this is enabling, and so the flexibility is provided for any department that want to post the veteran notation on their public profiles. I will note last year's amendment inadvertently added one extra public profile reference in the wrong place, and this bill adjusts that as well. There's no fiscal note, no opposition, and for these reasons, I ask for your favorable consideration.
Okay, thank you. Again, to clarify, we're lead committee and then the Finance Committee secondary. Thus, Senator Ellis here.
we also have a letter of support from the Board of Physicians.
Okay. Questions for Senator Simonaire on this piece of legislation, Senate Bill 150? Yes, Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Simonaire, thank you for your great bills, veterans bills. Quick question for technicality. Can veterans opt out of being included, the veteran status, on these documents and websites? Can they say, I don't want to be recognized, even though the system knows they're a veteran?
Right. The answer is yes. This is completely voluntary, and the veteran has to consent affirmatively to put it on there.
You said affirmative consent?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, additional question for Senator Simonaire. Senator Brooks, were you trying to push your light, or no? You don't, no question? Okay, good. Okay, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 150. We're going to next move to Senator Ellis's bill, Senate Bill 34, this Ellis and Feldman bill. Call up, we've got a panel, and I'm going to call up a sponsor panel. Hold on one second. Okay, we've got Nick Manis, Rebecca Olson, Giovante Hawkins, and Mary Beth Halpern. So those are 4 witnesses and 4 seats. Mary Beth, you're not coming up? Okay. Okay, Sarah Ellis, why don't you lead off, and then we'll go to the other witnesses, and then we'll take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and the members of the EEE Committee. It is good to be back with you in 2 roles in one day. So it's a pleasure to bring back fond memories of my 4 years on this committee. But today I'm here to present Senate Bill 0034, Certified Public Accountants Licensure Qualifications. Senate Bill 34 modernizes Maryland's current CPA licensure requirement by expanding the path to licensure through education and practical work experience, which can be obtained over a longer period of time, 6 years. This adjustment is purposeful. It allows individuals who have obtained a bachelor's degree without additional credit hours to fulfill licensure requirements through increased practical experience, 4,000 hours, and that's approximately 2 years of full-time, consistent work. This bill will address the shortage of certified public accountants in the state by eliminating a barrier to licensure for qualified professionals. The bill also ensures that new certified public accountants are available to replace professionals who are retiring. By providing an alternative requirement to meet licensure qualifications, Senate Bill 34 eases access to a new market of certified public accountants. It meets the demands of the workforce shortage and establishes a competitive market of working professionals. In conclusion, I request a favorable report on Senate Bill 34. Thank you, committee, for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Senator Ellis. Why don't we, got a sequence, you preferred sequence here? Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Okay, Mr. Manis, you're up next, and you're going to be on the 2-minute clock, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name's Nick Manis here representing the Maryland Association of Certified Public Accountants. I'd like to thank Senator Ellis and also the chairman for co-sponsoring this bill. To my right is Rebecca Brown Olson, who is the CEO of MACPAs, and we're here in support of Senate Bill 34. So you know you've been down here too long when 33 years ago I passed the 150-hour requirements. Chairman Blount was the chairman of this committee. Senator Arthur Dorman was the vice chair, and the CPAs sent me the picture of the bill signing, and unfortunately, out of 8 people, I'm the only one that's still here. So now I'm here 33 years later, not totally repealing the bill that we passed then, but adding an extra alternative where instead of 5 years of undergrad, they can do 4 years and also get work experience. So with that, we support the legislation, and Ms. Olson will give further comment.
Rebecca?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Nick said, my name is Rebecca Olson. I am the CEO of the Maryland Association of CPAs, founded 125 years ago this year. Nearly 8,500 members throughout the state that represents thousands and thousands of businesses, nonprofits, and individuals across Maryland. Here in support of Senate Bill 34, which modernizes CPA licensure while preserving that important rigor and trust that we're known for. The challenge is that our current licensure system is a one-size-fits-all, and it just doesn't reflect today's professionals. Rising education costs and the growing demand for accounting and finance talent expertise has led to a shortage. SB 34 keeps that existing pathway, but it adds this experience pathway as an additional one. It reduces unnecessary barriers, opens up licensure to a more diverse population, and helps employers meet the demand. This importantly retains the rigor and the public trust that the CPA is known for through the CPA exam and the oversight of the Board of Accountancy, which I believe you should have received a letter of support from as well. Importantly enough, though, is that this also helps Maryland keep competitive. 15 states have already enacted and implemented this pathway, including our neighbors in Virginia and Pennsylvania. 25 other states have passed legislation, and dozens more are currently seeking legislation. So the bottom line is this bill, Senate Bill 34, strengthens Maryland's workforce, it supports economic growth, and it keeps Maryland competitive. And for that reason, I ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Okay, our final witness, Ms. Hawkins.
Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Giovante Hawkins. I am the Executive Director of the Maryland Society of Accounting and Tax Professionals. We represent over 1,400 tax and accounting professionals who collectively serve more than 400,000 Marylanders. We are in strong support of Senate Bill 34. This bill modernizes the pathway to CPA licensure in Maryland by recognizing that multiple legitimate ways to prepare highly qualified professionals. It preserves rigorous education and examination standards while acknowledging that meaningful, relevant experience can be gained in public accounting, industry, government, and academia. Senate Bill 34 obviously does not lower the bar. Instead, it aligns licensure requirements with today's workforce realities, giving candidates flexibility without compromising competence, ethics, or public protection. Importantly, as Rebecca mentioned, the Board of Public Accountancy will still retain full oversight and evaluate and improve experience and equivalency. For firms and employers, this bill provides flexibility to recruit and retain talent at a time when the workforce shortages are very real, while still maintaining the high standards that the profession demands. Senate Bill 34 strengthens the profession, supports Maryland's economy, and protects the public trust. And for these reasons, we respectfully urge a favorable report on Senate Bill 34. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions for either Senator Ellis or any of the panelists? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 34. Brings us to our final bill of today, Senate Bill 2 from Senator Hester. So Senator Hester, if you could go up to the witness stand. I'm going to call up sponsor panel consisting of Marceline White, Emily Scarr, Molly Woods, and Brian Terwilliger. And those are the four designated sponsor panel lists that are going to join Senator Hester at the witness table. The senator will have all the time she needs, but we are going to, because with a fairly extensive witness list, we're going to have to put everybody else on the clock, not the senator, but everybody else. So Senator Hester, we're on Senate Bill 2.
Thank you very much, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, members of the best committee in the Senate. Thank you. For the record, Senator Katie Fry-Hester here to present Senate Bill 2. I want to start off by saying that, as this committee knows, energy prices have gone up really super high, and there are a number of reasons. These include the increased capacity costs from PJM due to the rise in data centers, where supply just does not meet demand. The increased distribution costs by utilities who too often abuse these programs like the STRIDE program to expand our distribution networks. But fundamentally, this bill is about the duty of the state, that the PSC has to approve utilities rates that are just and reasonable. And we need to send a message that a $14 million executive bonus is not just and reasonable. You know, as I've said, all Marylanders are facing rapidly rising electric and gas rates, while investor-owned utilities are reporting record profits and paying increasingly grand executive compensation, much of which is recovered directly from our customers' monthly bills. At the same time, profits have surged. BGE's profits, which were consistently below $150 million prior to Exelon's acquisition in 2012, reached approximately $527 million in 2024. PEPCO's profits have nearly doubled since its merger with Exelon, rising from about $205 million in 2018 to nearly $390 million in 2024. And these profits have coincided with executive compensation packages that far exceed what most Maryland families can fathom. Exelon's CEO alone received more than $15 million in compensation in 2024. Here in Maryland, my office receives phone calls from households that have shutoff notices and are devastated and don't know what to do. We hear from our families who are forced to make impossible choices between paying their utility bills, buying groceries, or covering rent and medical expenses. Ratepayers fundamentally should not be required to subsidize costs that do not improve reliability, safety, or affordability. There is a fundamental imbalance when struggling households are asked to fund these bonuses, inflated base salaries, or corporate entertainment. Investor-owned utilities are entitled to earn a reasonable profit, but not at the expense of ratepayers. And so what SB 2 does is it draws a clear and reasonable line. It does not prohibit utility companies from offering bonuses or incentives to their employees. Instead, it ensures that ratepayers are not required to subsidize recovering executive compensation. Specifically, SB 2 prohibits utilities from recovering from customer rates executive compensation that exceeds 110% of the annual salary of a public service commission commissioner, and it bars ratepayer funding of bonus or incentive compensation. The bill also requires utility boards to adopt policies limiting recovery of non-essential corporate expenses such as entertainment, events, transportation services, office renovations, while expressly protecting collective bargain employees and honoring their existing employment contracts. Health, medical, life insurance, disability benefits are excluded, and no current contract executed on or before December 31st, 2025 is disturbed. SB 2 strengthens accountability and ensures that ratepayer dollars are used for their intended purpose, delivering safe, reliable, and affordable energy, not underwriting excessive executive pay. It's estimated that this could save ratepayers over $100 million, according to IBEW estimations. I wanted to address some of the arguments that you will hear from the opposition before I turn it over to my panel. You will probably hear that this bill prevents the utilities from providing competitive salaries and bonuses. But this bill does not do that. It doesn't prevent them from paying this compensation. It just caps how much our ratepayers can foot the bill. So $250,000 a year is about 8 times Maryland's statewide minimum wage, 4 times the median household income in Baltimore City, and compensation in which Maryland residents can and do thrive. Costs above that amount are unnecessary to serve customers reliably, safely, and reliably. I did some analysis of how this would actually actually work. And I want to point you to this chart here, which was just passed out with the Exelon financials from 27 to 2024. So first of all, next Thursday, Exelon will announce its earnings, and then we would have the full 2025 data. But for now, this is just from 2024. And so you can see on this chart what the current compensation of the CEO is $14 million. And then of the top 5 executives, total is $29 million. We were asked, how many of their employees might make over $250,000 a year. That was asked last week in the E&T committee. I believe we are still waiting for that information. So with this, out of the dividends paid, right, in 2024, they paid $1.5 billion in dividends, and they have 1 billion shares. And so the dividends per share is $1.52, right? Now, if you decide that you want to take the $28.9 million that the top 5 executives make, and you decide that, hey, like instead of paying that off the backs of our ratepayers, we are going to pay that out of the dividends that are distributed to shareholders, that reduces it to 2.9 cents a share. And so I really don't think that the shareholders are going to miss this 2.9 cents a share. You'll hear later that the companies estimate that it's only going to save our ratepayers $1.70 a month. I think that is a really low number, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But the bottom line, then if you look at the second chart here, where we've got the dividend yields of many of the different electric companies, you'll see that Exelon right up there is second highest from the top, with only Dominion paying a higher dividend per share. And so my argument is if we ask them to take off this 2.9 cents a share, would be a little bit more if it was actually $100 million of people making over 250. Like, it's really not going to hurt their standing, with their shareholders, because they're already so darn near the top. Okay, so that's the first argument that I wanted to debunk. The second argument, they're going to talk about how the Maryland State Retirement and Pension System has $44 million invested in Exelon and its companies. And I just want to note that the size of the pension system is $73.5 billion, meaning that this makes up 0.9% of the pension system's portfolio. Our portfolio, our comptroller does a great job, and so does the Committee on Pensions. It's diversified across thousands of investments, and no responsible pension strategy hinges on unlimited ratepayer-funded executive bonuses of a single entity. So that's that argument. They may also say that no other industry faces such regulations, but President Trump just recently issued an executive order that provides federal regulations for how much defense contractors can be compensated. Fourth, they might say that this bill will hurt reliability. Executive bonuses are not essential infrastructure, and there are no limits on capital investments, maintenance, or storm response. They may say that this may inhibit their ability to hire or pay top talent. But there is nothing in this bill that says that everybody can still, there's nothing in the bill that says that these people can't be paid the exact same amount they're paying now. It's just who pays the bill. Is it our ratepayers or is it their shareholders? They might also say there are bigger issues to tackle, or this will just address a small piece of the pie. That is true, colleagues. I know that. I spent all year working on this. I've gone up to PJM. I've looked at all the data centers. Like, I know we have big problems. I also know we have big problems with our distribution rates. But colleagues, we're in a time where prices are so high, we need to look at everything, including $14 million executive bonuses, and do every single thing we can to reduce the amount that our ratepayers are paying. They may say that that compensation is already heavily regulated by the PSC, and that PSC oversight exists. But even the PSC has testified that SB 2 provides clearer statutory direction and stronger guardrails. Oversight without firm limits still allows costs to rise over time. For example, if the PSC currently says, oh yes, executive bonuses are allowed, but they don't say whether it's anything above $250,000 or $14 million, there is nothing for the PSC can do to stop them from paying exorbitant bonuses. Lastly, they will probably say that this bill will only save ratepayers $1.70 per bill. I want to highlight the assumption that they use to calculate this number. I was trying to figure out, so they will say $1.70 per bill, but that is based on the assumption that the average use per household is 876 kilowatt hours and 55 therms per month. That is really, really low, colleagues. An average 2-bedroom house, which is a very small house, would have 1,166 kilowatt hours and 75 therms. So I really don't know where they're getting this number. It must be a small apartment or something. But even a 2-bedroom apartment, it would save them $2.32, and that's a small 2-bedroom house. And lots of people in my district have 3 or 4-bedroom houses. I don't want to go on too much longer, but you will also have this executive compensation table here, which you can look through at your leisure. On page 60, you'll see that the incentive plan compensation more than doubled from 2022 to 2023. You'll also note that bargaining unit employees receive a bonus ranging from 0 to 8% with a target of 4%. And this structure is consistent across all Exelon Maryland utilities. Page 2 of the attached report outlines the management side. An EO3, a frontline supervisor, receives a 15% target bonus, while an EO6 director level receives $30,000. These are not target figures. If the company exceeds its self-set metrics significantly, bonuses can reach up to 200% of a target. That could be 60% for an EO6. Historically, however, bonuses have been capped at around 120%. That is the highlights. I could go on for much longer, but in the interest of the committee's time, I just will turn it over then to the rest of my panel and respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 2. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's take your panel, then we'll take questions. Do you have a particular order that you'd like, or do you just want to? Okay, let's, whoever starts, we'll just go down the table that order, okay? Tell us who you are.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, members of the EEE Committee. My name is Molly Woods. I'm here on behalf of the Office of People's Counsel in support of SB 2 with amendments. As the sponsor so clearly said, utilities are unlike any other regulated industry. They're private companies with fiduciary duties to their shareholders, and they have state-granted exclusive franchises to perform public interest service functions that require them to operate in the public interest. But these two sets of interests are not always aligned, which is why utilities are subject to what the Maryland Supreme Court has called pervasive state regulation. SB 2 is an important exercise of that regulation, ensuring that cash-strapped customers are not paying for excessive utility compensation above what is necessary and prudent to provide safe and reliable utility service. You've heard what the bill will do, and OPC has provided suggested amendments that would address a number of the concerns raised by the utilities. The sponsor is focused on some of the issues that were raised by the utilities and other opponents previously. I just want to come back to two of those. One, that the bill's limits on the compensation that utilities can recover from customers would prevent them from being able to attract and retain needed talent. We agree that utility employees do critical work and that utility companies need to be able to employ skilled professionals. But context like that the sponsor shared is important. 110% of the salary of the highest paid commissioner of the PSC, roughly $250,000, is hardly lowest cost labor. But in fact, the law requires utilities to provide service that is safe and reliable and also economical. Second, that the bill doesn't guarantee actual customer savings. I think the sponsor spoke to that. I'm happy to answer more questions about what we can potentially anticipate, but that is complicated to know based on the information that's currently available. With that, we ask for a favorable report.
Ms. White, why don't you go next?
As I'm grabbing. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Marceline White, and I'm Executive Director of Economic Action Maryland Fund. We are here in strong support of SB 2. We believe this is a common sense pro-consumer measure that promotes transparency and prevents unnecessary costs from being passed on to ratepayers. Each year, we serve about 2,000 clients through our older adult, tenant, and fair housing programs. Many of our clients are making impossible choices between keeping the lights on and putting food on the table. In fact, today, we received survey results of more than 500 Marylanders statewide. 63% of those surveyed said utilities were the biggest expense that is hurting their quality of life. Captive ratepayers should not be forced to subsidize expenses that provide them no direct benefit. This bill caps recovery only for staff whose salaries exceed $250,000. We believe this is specific and well-grounded. In a free market, consumers could shop around, and in this regulated market instead, consumers do not have the same kind of choice, so there have to be reasonable limits placed on the personal and corporate profits that companies can pass on to captive consumers. And while some may say that there's not going to be enough money returned to make it meaningful, I can tell you this is a good and important first step. For a lot of the clients that we serve, particularly our older adults, $25 is a bag of groceries. It's a prescription. So it's critically important for the folks that we serve. We think this ensures that Marylanders are not paying more than they should for essential utility services. And we believe it creates transparency and accountability. For these reasons, we support SB2 and urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Scar, you're up next.
Hi, thank you. For the record, my name is Emily Scar. I'm a senior advisor with Maryland PIRG, the statewide public interest advocacy organization based in Baltimore. We work to find common ground around common sense solutions that will help ensure a healthier, safer, and more secure future. As private companies, investor-owned utilities can pay their executives what they see fit. However, as state-granted monopolies, there should be reasonable limits on how much of those salaries and bonuses they can pass on to ratepayers, as well as expenses for travel, advertising, and events. Tying the recommended cap to the salary of the Public Service Commission enables utilities to hire qualified leaders with issue expertise and managerial experience to serve as executives to meet the needs of ratepayers. As has been said, they can still pay salaries above that with their profits. They just can't add it to our bills. Marylanders are facing rapidly increasing gas and electric delivery rates, especially from the Exelon utilities, as you have heard, as their profits skyrocket. But ratepayers aren't seeing commensurate value for the costs. In fact, some customers are experiencing worse service and decreased safety. The best way to prevent rate hikes is rigorous prudency review of spending and disincentivizing wasteful spending to ensure only prudent costs are recovered through rates. And the legislature has a critical role to play as a partner to the PSC by giving them clear statutory authority to reject excessive and imprudent recovery. This bill does just that by codifying the PSC authority to make executive pay more accountable to consumer benefits and limiting spending related to events, advertising, and travel. Any suggestion that this bill will lead to worse outcomes for reliability, service, or ratepayer bills does a disservice to the many public servants at the PSC who are rank and file staff doing the work to keep the lights on and the gas going. And these outcomes are not dependent on being able to charge customers in excess of $250,000 for executive salaries. Since utilities don't compete in a competitive market, it's the job of the legislature to properly regulate the monopoly to prevent excessive charges to Marylanders who have no alternative for utility service. We respectfully request a favorable report.
Okay, before we take questions, I want to keep the sponsor panel intact. So, Mr. Terwilliger, why don't you come up here and either, Ms. Wood, if you would yield just the seat, and so why don't you present your testimony, and then we'll take questions for the entire panel, okay?
Sure. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, EEE Committee, pleasure to be here. My name is Brian Twilliger. I'm the Assistant Business Manager for IBEW 410. We represent roughly 1,450 IBEW workers for Baltimore Gas and Electric. Hello, can't hear me? Oh, can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
All right. I'm not going to repeat everything I said, but Brian Twilliger, Assistant Business Manager, IBEW 410. Most of you guys know me. So I'm going to change course on my testimony only because Senator Hester and the rest of this panel covered so much in detail that I don't think I need to speak to all that. I want to focus more on the amendment that we submitted to Senator Hester and the reason behind it. And I want to read the reasoning behind our amendment from our collective bargaining agreement. As Senator Hester touched, our bargaining agreement with Exelon is consistent throughout all of the utilities. It is the same language that you'll find in the PEPCO, Delmarva, and BG contracts. And that language states, the potential payout shall range from 0 to 8% of base pay with a target of 4% based on the goals established by the company in its discretion. And I think that's the key point that I want to make, in its discretion. This is management right language and or Me Too language. There's no reason for CBA protection within this bill, because if this assembly was to take the bonuses away, surely they're not going to establish goals that are consistent to keep the unions to remain to get them. So that is the amendment that we submitted to Senator Hester with a couple other things. But I also want to focus on those goals. So I want to explain how this works in a little bit more detail. So the Exelon utilities establish their own goals. These goals are not established by the PSC. They are regulated, but they are not established. And when you look at those goals, consistent with the 2025 payout that was just announced 3 hours ago, I want to describe what these goals are. So as Senator Hester explained, there is a threshold, there is a target, and there is a distinguished target. One is a 50% payout, one is a 100% payout, and one is a 200% payout. Of those goals, the goals that Exelon at BGE did not make were customer satisfaction index, which is obviously what the customer's view of the company.
You're hitting a kind of a different point, so we're going to give you latitude. Just finish your.
The other goals that they did not hit were their SAIDI and first contact resolution, what have to do with their outage responses. What they did hit is going to be their value-based engagement in adopting safety best practices.
Stride.
And their value-based engagement is the percentage of select leaders that have completed their target number of value-based engagements. VBEs are conversations held with the company leaders, with frontline supervisors and employees to assess the alignment of the company's safety-related values. And because they hit distinguish on good conversations, there is a 117% payout, even though what they didn't hit was based on customer related topics. So with that, I ask for a favorable report with the amendments we assigned.
Okay, now we'll open it up for the sponsor, the panel, including Ms. Woods, who's sitting right behind. And we're going to start with Vice Chair Kagan, then Senator Watson, and then whoever else wants to win.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Why don't we squeeze in another chair so we're not leaving anybody out? Yeah, usually
Lamorria, I thought we usually have enough chairs for five.
There you go. So much better. Thank you. Senator Hester, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to you and your staff. Clearly, you put a lot of time and effort into this bill, into the research, so thank you for that. I have 2 questions for you, and I wonder if you or your colleagues on the panel can help. And now I have to pull up the right window since I have 153 windows open. The questions are about, number 1, how do other utilities, so I'm thinking about WSSC water and sewer, do we regulate, or is there any precedent for this anywhere else? And again, maybe someone else can speak to this. And then the second question is, in the last part of the bill, I apologize, I really just have too many windows open. The last section of the bill talks about the board needing to put a cap, reasonable expenses on training and parties and travel, including aviation and all that. We've heard about private jets and all that. Can you just tell me who defines what reasonable is? Did you talk to the Attorney General? Is that in code? Who decides my reasonable and someone else's might be very different?
So there's 3 key parts of the bill. I'll let Brian take the bonuses section. But for precedent for lowering how much they can pass on to customers, that's been done regulatorily. And as you'll hear, there is authority within the PSC to do this to some degree. This is just sort of clarifying and codifying that. I think the best example recently, is Minnesota, where through the regulation, there was a push to really cap how much they could pass on to customers. Some of that has been litigated in court and affirming the right of the regulators to limit executive pay. On the second, around limiting how much can be spent on entertainment, advertising, travel, you sort of just named it. Yes, we did this last year. The legislature banned the passing on of some expenses like trade association dues and private jets to ratepayers. This is a little different. It's reasonable rates. I think that is a well-defined term within, you can ask Ben Baker, that's how rates are set generally, reasonableness. So there's a lot of legislation, legal precedent around how to determine that. I think there may be some technical tweaks to that language the House took out you should look at just to make it more clear or who's making the decisions. It's the PSC that's determining what's reasonable, not the utilities themselves. So I hope that answers your question, and Brian can talk about precedent on that.
I think you did a great job. Again, I want to protect the committee's time unless Mr. Twilliger, we want your answer too, briefly.
Can you just repeat the question?
I think we're good. Ms. Garr did a great job.
I think she answered everything.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Watson.
Thank you for this. how can you determine today, based on the data, I look at the financials, that's great, but how do you know what is actually being passed on to the ratepayer today?
Yeah, I can take that. Thank you for the question, Senator. So commission practice, commission precedent currently is that incentive compensation for executives that's tied to financial goals is not recoverable. So a portion of the compensation that goes to any executive is going to be discounted in a rate case. The way that works in a rate case is that the utilities will propose a rate-making adjustment where they say, we're going to take out this amount of the executive compensation because it's tied to these financial goals of the company.
Right. So if the executives accomplish a goal, the compensation they receive is not passed on to ratepayers.
If it's tied to that, if it's tied to a financial goal as opposed to a customer service performance metric or something else that's more directly tied to utility service functions. The thing that this bill would do that current commission precedent does not do is it would, one, expand that to supervisors, not just executives. So right now that in a rate case, we really look at executive incentive compensation. We're not really looking at incentive compensation for other employees. So to the extent that there are supervisors who are making in excess of $250,000 and a good chunk of that is based on incentive compensation, that part of the bill might apply to a broader group of employees.
So the way you portrayed the bill, by showing these financials, you list all these executive salaries which aren't even relevant. And if I go online and look at any comparable company that makes $20 billion a year or more, the executive salary from the president CEO is right around $17 million, which is not out of sync. But we're not even talking about that. And so, I kind of, take issue with the way this was presented as though this, is the issue. So now we're talking about not executive level, but your line supervisors and those types of folks, right? And now you're saying that a $250,000 a year compensation is out of spec for those types of folks?
No, to clarify, the bill addresses all executive compensation, including bonuses. And so and none of it says you can't pay them $17 million. All it is addressing is how much of those costs can be recovered through rates. So as Molly was talking about how some bonuses may be denied for rate recovery, generally their entire salaries are recovered through rates. What we're doing is putting limits on how much can be passed on to ratepayers and avoiding a giant loophole where they then shift all of that extra cost to a bonus. So we need to be very careful on how we define compensation. As she's alluding to, there are already some restrictions on bonuses for financial incentives, but that's kind of blurry, how you define why you're giving someone the money. We're trying to clarify that so the PSC has better tools to reject this excessive recovery of the cost from ratepayers.
Yeah, apologies, just I didn't get to the second piece that would be different from current commission precedent, which is that there is no cap on compensation now. So right now, if a utility executive had, I don't know what portion of those compensation packages
but
are.
Let's stop talking about executives because that's not what we're talking about. All right, let's keep the main thing. Other states, are there caps on what non-executive folks can make? Other states that deal in public utility space?
I think there have been, as Emily was mentioning, there have been efforts at the sort of PSC level in terms of legislation. I think this is a little bit newer in its approach.
So efforts don't imply implementation. Has it been done in any other states?
So in Minnesota, they have the PSC, their version of the PSC. It was not actually through regulation, but in a specific rate case, tied the level of compensation that utility executives would be allowed to be passed through to customers who are utility executives to the salary of the governor. That was challenged in court. The court said that the commission was within its authority to set something like that, but sent it back to the commission to sort of reassess what that amount was and why it was reasonable. So basically, they didn't do enough to justify it. But if I could just say one more thing in terms of what is not currently covered under existing commission precedent. So that $250,000, the 110% cap, it doesn't apply. So right now, if a utility executive or any utility employee is earning more than $250,000, whether it's in salary or bonus, that can, that would be recoverable. So the only thing that's really looked at right now is whether the incentive compensation, the bonus, is tied to a financial goal. Otherwise, that total amount is not generally looked at in detail.
So we're only talking incentives here?
I'm sorry?
We're only talking incentives?
No. Well, this bill does two different things, which I think is maybe where the confusion comes in. It both addresses bonuses generally, and it puts a cap on the overall compensation, including bonuses and base pay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to Senator Harris next.
Appreciate it, Mr. Chair. I'm still trying to grasp everything that they're saying there, especially that 250,000 cap. That number does bother me a tad bit every time it's mentioned. It just needs, one of the things you all said, I want to make sure I understood it right. Or maybe let me just ask this question. Right, is there a time or instance where the PSC allowed unreasonable compensation costs into rates despite having the authority to disallow them?
We would argue yes.
Okay, so and going back to the good senator's question there, the argument here is not putting a cap on anyone that makes over $250,000, right? What you all are trying to say is, if they make $250,000, the bonuses should be based off ratepayers or shareholders. Like, what are we trying to go there with that particular?
It's essentially that anything over $250,000 would be paid for by shareholders, not customers.
So that's what
that's what the bill would do.
That's the goal of the bill.
Can I just try to explain this really simply? So like right now, if somebody is making like $1 million, right? Then all of that would be rate-based, and our ratepayers would pay for all of that. If the bill passes, then the ratepayers will pay for the first $250,000, and the next $750,000 will be paid by the shareholders, which I calculated would be, just pennies on the share. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I do not think if this bill passes, anybody's salary is going to change. What changes is that small part of our utilities bills. But you got to look at everything in this day and age, because $25 can buy critical medicine or a bag of groceries or, that last little bit that they need to get to transportation to town.
If I may just add one thing, Senator. You asked if the PSC has ever approved unreasonable compensation, even though they have the authority not to. This really, when we're talking about compensation in rate cases, it's not the big ticket item. I mean, we're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars, and this is, compensation is a sort of small line item among those other costs. So it's not something that gets interrogated very closely in rate cases. There are specific things that we look at along the lines of incentive compensation, but we're not generally interrogating that in detail, and that's part of the reason that we need something like this to bring that information to the forefront. We don't even have any idea how many employees at BGE or PEPCO or Delmarva make more than that $250,000, because it's not information that's reported.
And that information was asked for last week, and we still don't have it.
Okay, got it. And then, so the other question, sorry about this, Chair. So the other question, you mentioned that when you did the numbers, you were saying the numbers might have been based off a thermite reading of, of a small apartment. Did we do the average of what that savings would be for someone that has a 2 or 3 or 4 bedroom home? And because we said $1.70 savings per bill.
So the $1.70 savings per bill is based on Exelon's testimony. And in that testimony, they say that that's based on a house that sorry. What was it?
Like 60, it's on your third page of the picture.
Sorry, got too much here. So they're saying it's $1.70 per bill. And I would like to know how they calculated that, right? It's not clear what the assumptions are. But they based it on an average usage of 876 kilowatt hours and 55 therms per month. And so I tried to find out what kind of house had a 876 kilowatt hours and 55 therms per month. And I actually didn't find anything that was that small. The smallest one I found was a 2-bedroom house that would have 1,166 kilowatt hours and 75 therms. So I just did a simple proportion, and I said, well, if that's 170, then the house that I did find, which was only 2 bedrooms, would cost $2.32 a month. But that's a really small house. I mean, you could do the ratio yourself, but that is assuming that their initial estimation is right. But it also begs the question of, if they don't know how many employees make over $250,000 a year, then how did they calculate the $1.70 per bill? I mean, I believe that you would have to know that number in order to calculate that estimate, but they haven't been able to provide it for us.
Got it. And then you mentioned earlier as well, I just want to make sure I understood it correctly, when there was issues about union versus non-union, and you're saying that that's not what the bill entails.
I'm going to defer to Brian.
Sorry, yeah, so while we thank the legislation for trying to protect the workers, we just don't think it's necessary. The language in our collective bargaining agreements is Me Too language, so if they don't get it, we wouldn't get it either. Yeah, sum that up.
Appreciate that, Chair.
Okay, let's go Senator Brooks, Senator Washington, and then back to Senator Watson. Okay, Senator Brooks?
All right, thanks, Chair. Senator, have you ever thought about unintended consequences? And could this compensation limitation incentivize increases in use of consultants or other contractual workarounds? And how does this bill prevent that?
I did not think of that as an unintended consequence. I would, I don't know, maybe you could expand on what, I mean.
Well, rather than if the limitation is on 250, then they could just hire consultants to come in and perform that work, and then those costs would be expensed, and
Those costs would meet the same prudency review that other expenses go through the PSC. So I cannot guarantee that the utilities aren't spending excessively or won't spend excessively on consultants, but the intent of the bill is to limit excessive pay, and that saying that these salaries aren't needed to deliver customer service. And so if there's things that they're doing that they still want to do, they would have to go through prudency review. So yes, there's always concerns of utilities looking for loopholes, but that's no reason not to take an attempt to limit excessive executive pay.
And just to clarify again, I think what's important to remember is that the bill is not capping the pay at $250,000. You can still pay someone $17 million. It's just the $250,000 is the cost that will be passed on to the ratepayers. The additional would be what is borne by the shareholders.
Okay.
I mean, fundamentally, I think about it like this. Would you rather, assuming that the numbers are, close to accurate, it's a decision of whether we want, our ratepayers to pay the $2.32, right? Or we want the shareholders to lose, 1.5 pennies. And I would vote with my ratepayers, not the shareholders.
Okay. Okay, let's go to Senator Washington, and then we'll go to Senator Watson after that.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Hester, for this bill, and also thank this panel. I want to get back to, because this bill really isn't about salary of executives, right? So I just really want to, so if anybody's having some feelings about that, I think we should just let that go, right? What I'm wanting to understand is that, I think it was just said, it's like, correct? So if you are an investor, the way that investors get paid is out of the profits of the company, right? And part of running the company and part of being able to earn the profits is the infrastructure, is how do you improve or deal with the utilities, how do you correct infrastructure, how do you set rates, all that sort of thing. So I guess I want to, the question I want to ask is that if you're, oh, sorry, let me back up. I think I went around too much. Okay.
Can I?
All right, so you're talking about profits. Let's get back to that, right? So you're saying that if you're wanting to assess the cost of an executive, for example, and you wish to pay them $500,000, et cetera, that you can only attribute $250,000 of that to the ratepayer, right? Because recognizing, okay, it costs to run the company and all this. Bonuses are something else, right? So bonuses are attributed for gaining sort of additional profits, et cetera. And so you're saying that that money should come out of the profits.
I'm saying that anything over $250,000, whether it is in their salary or compensation, should come out of the profits. And let's just remember that we're talking about a regulated monopoly.
Exactly.
For every single other private sector company, 100% of their employees' salary and 100% of their employees' bonus comes out of their profits.
Yes.
That's just the way business works.
And that's where I was getting. And additionally, not only is there's a whole set of benefits that these utilities get.
They're getting a mandated profit, Senator.
Well, we had a bill a couple years ago about the loans and what they're able to pay back, and it will take like 100 years to pay it back, et cetera. So there's just been a lot of benefits. So to me, this is really pretty straightforward, and it's setting a cap about how much you can attribute, because that does pass on to the ratepayer. Like, this is about our ratepayers at the end of the day. And so we want the ratepayers to pay for the cost of delivering the service. Is that correct? Of delivering the utility. We don't think it's fair for the ratepayers to pay so that others make for the profits of the investors in the system. Would that be where, could I say that? Some people are nodding, others maybe.
I think the PSC is charged with ensuring that the utility rates are just and reasonable.
Yes.
We haven't had any kind of guidance from the legislature on what just and reasonable with executive compensation and bonuses are. So this line draws a line in the sand and says we feel it is just and reasonable for the ratepayers to pay up to $250,000 per person out of the ratepayers. And they are welcome to pay more, but that will come out of the earnings, the dividends per share.
One last question. Have we set caps on or guidelines on just and reasonable in other contexts, other costs associated? Could you, that would be the case.
Yeah, I mean, this is what the work at the PSC, Ben can talk more, but, just last month, there was a rejection of proposed recovery from BG&E of about $70 million that was determined to not be just or reasonable.
Right, so this isn't the case where it's eat the rich, right? We're just focusing, on the executives. It's just all aspects of this utility that receives a tremendous amount of state benefit, does provide a service to our constituents, that we are just balancing.
Yeah, it's the balance of active regulation, as we have to do with a monopoly that does not exist in the free market.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator Watson.
Just a quick question. Where did the $250K come from? I didn't see it in the bill. How was that calculated?
That's an estimate. So the bill says 110% of the highest paid, I think it says member of the commission. That's an estimate based on, I think it's maybe 2024 information, what the PSC chair salary was, and then counting that upwards.
But not yet knowing, because you haven't got the information on what the average salary is.
Well, it's not, it takes, the language in the bill takes the highest paid member of the commission, their salary, and then does 110% of that. So I'm sure that somebody in the state has access to that information. We don't have the most recent information.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions for the sponsor panel? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your testimony. We have one more panel of favorables. I'm going to call them up. Iman Habib, Josh Tolkien, Rebecca Rare, and Jamie DeMarco. And that's the extent of the favorables, and then we do have unfavorable testimony after that. But each of you are going to be on the up to 2-minute clock. And Ms. Rare, I'm looking at you first. Why don't we start with you, and then we'll go down the aisle.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Rebecca Rear, Director of Climate Policy and Justice at the Maryland League of Conservation Voters. We are here to support SB 2, a bill that focuses on capping the amount of utility salaries that are recovered through utility rates with additional guidance on other expenses. This is a clear initiative that is part of a suite of utility accountability bills you are considering this year to address energy affordability. Maryland LCV is working to power Maryland forward, supporting energy affordability through deployment of solar and storage, defense against deployment of additional fossil fuels and unchecked utility profits, while getting the most out of the electricity grid that we have. Maryland LCV urges a favorable report on this important bill as part of this affordability framework. Thank you.
Mr. DeMarco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. Jamie DeMarco, on behalf of the Chesapeake Climate Action Network Action Fund, we urge a favorable report on SB 2. Chesapeake Climate Action Network is committed to lowering energy prices and making energy affordable for everyone as we transition to a clean economy. This is an important lever that the state has at its disposal that it can pull to lower energy bills. We think this moment calls for an all-hands-on-deck approach to lower energy bills, pulling every lever available to us. This is a concrete one that is guaranteed to lower energy bills, and one that we think should be pulled. I want to touch briefly on the difference between rate-based and profits. Rate-based means that the utility essentially takes out a multi-decade loan with something like a 9 to 10% interest on it. So if we are paying $1 million for an executive with rate-based dollars, that means ratepayers are not just paying that $1 million. We are taking out a mortgage with a 10% interest on that $1 million and paying much more than a total of $1 million over the course of that term. As the senator was mentioning earlier, profits for the utilities also come from ratepayers. So that will still, if a utility wants to pay its executives $1 million, that $750,000 will still come from ratepayers. It just won't be rate-based, meaning we won't be stuck with a 10% 30-year mortgage on that $750,000. And we think that is a great way to save money for ratepayers. We urge a favorable report.
Okay, Ms. Habib.
Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. I am Iman Habib, Climate Policy Analyst with Progressive Maryland. We're an organization that's a power-building organization, multiracial, and we advocate for working-class people who face a multitude of injustices, one being energy affordability. We represent a vast number of Marylanders with significant membership in Baltimore City, Frederick County, Montgomery, Prince George's, Hartford, and then also on the Eastern Shore. Since this past summer, we've knocked on over 10,000 doors listening to the concerns of Marylanders, and one of the most common issues they've been facing is housing and financial instability that is exacerbated by high utility bills. And for that reason, Progressive Maryland is in strong support of Senate Bill 2. I want to share the story of Alice Lucas, Progressive Maryland member from Temple Hills, Prince George's County. She reported that her utility bills significantly increased 3 to 4 years ago and have remained consistently high since then, sometimes upwards of $300 per month. This creates ongoing financial strain on her fixed income and forces difficult choices between paying for basic needs like heat and medication. These rising costs, combined with deteriorating living conditions at her apartment complex, have made it increasingly challenging for her to afford monthly bills and necessities in a community that she has called home for over a decade. And there are so many Alice Lucases all over Maryland that are battling the cost of living crisis and asking the state to do something to address affordability. When working-class Marylanders regularly choose between paying for basic necessities like groceries, like heat, like medication, the last thing they want is for their already strained income to fund corporate execs. Progressive Maryland respectfully urges a favorable report. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Mr. Tolkien.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm Josh Tolkien, the director of the Maryland chapter of the Sierra Club. It's good to see everybody again in 2026. On behalf of our 70,000 members and supporters, we urge a favorable report and me too.
Okay, questions for this panel? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your testimony. I'm going to call up, we've got a panel of unfavorables, 3 witnesses, and then after that, we're going to take testimony for information purposes only from the Public Service Commission, Mr. Baker, who's in the back of the room. So I'm going to call up our unfavorables, Felicia Cummings, Brittany Jones, and Ann Clace. 3 witnesses signed up unfavorable, and then after that, we will take information testimony from the public, directly from the Public Service Commission, okay? Okay, anybody want to, Ms. Clace, you want to lead off, and then we'll go down the aisle?
Sure. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Ann Clace on behalf of PEPCO and Delmarva Power in strong opposition to Senate Bill 2. First and foremost, we share the concerns regarding high energy costs. However, Senate Bill 2 does not address the root cause of high bills. The primary driver of year-over-year increases in bills is supply costs, not the compensation of the hardworking men and women working every day to keep the lights on and provide our customers and your constituents with safe and reliable service. First, this legislation undermines the Public Service Commission's role and sets a dangerous precedent. Senate Bill 2 would disrupt the long-established framework under which the Public Service Commission oversees utility operations and costs. The Commission's long-standing practice does allow utilities to recover in rates, employee salaries, incentive compensations, but only if it is tied to customer-related goals such as safety, reliability, and customer service. Finally, it should be noted that no other industry, including hospitals or insurers, faces this level of legislative micromanagement of compensation. Second, utilities compete regionally and nationally for engineers, line workers, cybersecurity specialists, and project managers, those who keep the lights on and our systems safe. Maintaining competitive compensation packages supports affordability rather than undermines it. When utilities cannot secure the talent needed to prevent outages, manage complex systems, or increase efficiency, service quality declines and long-term costs to customers will rise. Finally, legislative and regulatory decisions impact how investors assess risk. If expenses were historically recoverable, become excluded, or there are consistently changing rules and regulations, this is noticed, and this uncertainty creates risk. That risk can create higher costs of capital, which can lead to more expensive infrastructure investment, and those costs ultimately can get passed on to the customer. We understand energy costs have become a central issue this legislative session, and we do share the urgency to do something meaningful to help our customers. However, this proposal is not going to meaningfully impact customer bills. Thank you for your time and consideration. We respectfully request an unfavorable report on SB 2.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cummings.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, members of the Senate Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. For the record, my name is Felicia Cummings, and I'm the Vice President of Total Rewards. I have over 25 years of benefits and compensation expertise, and I'm here on behalf of Exelon to respectfully oppose Senate Bill 2. So first, I'd like to address that our compensation programs and targets are reviewed annually and informed by external market data. Our executive compensation is reviewed annually by a third-party consultant firm that reviews, assesses, and recommends or opposes compensation for our senior-most executives. And our executive compensation is reviewed and approved by the Talent Management Committee of our Board of Directors. Further, I want to emphasize that comparing corporate functional director or private corporate roles and compensation to that of public sector commissioners is really not a meaningful comparison, and not one as a compensation professional that I would recommend. These roles operate in fundamentally different labor markets with different expectation, accountability, organizational structures, and compensation philosophies and motivations. I'd like to address a few things as well. So one, executive compensation that is aligned to shareholder outcomes, like our long-term incentives, currently is excluded by the PSC, as well as any aligned to profitability. So I believe our CEO's compensation was referred to earlier, looking at his growth from 2022 to 2023. His 2022 compensation reflected that in his role as a COO, and so the 23 increase that you noted was a promotional increase to him leading the whole of Exelon. I'd also like to share that of the $14,662,925 that was referenced, $9 million of that was long-term incentives. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Jones.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Brittany Jones, and I'm the Director of Government and External Affairs for BGE. And I'm here to be a voice of the 1,776 employees who are Marylanders that will be directly harmed by SB 2. These are the employees who work around the clock to quite literally keep the lights on and the gas flowing. Take our Director of Customer Advocacy, who's actually here with us today. She's an immigrant from Russia who came to America as a child for a better life. She worked 3 different jobs while putting herself through college and landed a job at BGE. She worked tirelessly to learn, grow, and develop to become the impactful leader she is today, while also raising a family in Howard County. She leads a team that directly supports customers during their greatest time of need. We have another gentleman with us who is our Director of Utility Training. What's remarkable about this story is that he started with BGE as a training in substations, and 18 years later, he was promoted to lead the entire organization of where he started. This same individual also led Storm Center in response to the recent snowstorm. Like many of our employees, he worked around the clock to ensure our customers have reliable power during the frigid cold temperatures. He stayed in a hotel away from his family, unable to shovel them out in order to be there for our customers. As a salary employee, he's not paid overtime. Why is this important? It's important because SB 2 targets these individuals and other supervisors to cap their well-earned pay that's based on market against that of a commissioner who's a public sector agency, as you just heard. It's imperative that this committee understands that despite what you're hearing, this bill does not just target CEO or executive compensation and benefits. The bill impacts the 1,700 employees of BGE who are not in a union. The bill explicitly says employees' bonuses cannot be recoverable. That's separate than the 110% cap. I ask the committee to carefully evaluate the unintended consequences this bill may have on customers and to our employees, many of whom are your constituents as well. I urge an unfavorable report, and thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you for testimony. We're going to take questions now. Let's Senator Carrozza and then Senator Washington. Senator Carrozza, why don't you lead off?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I wanted to follow up because I think we all try to understand how legislation impacts our constituents. So Delmarva Power serves my district. Chesapeake Utilities serves my district. And I know Chesapeake didn't testify here. And so my question would be to Ms. Clays regarding Delmarva. Can you tell, and I don't know if you can at this point, but I want to ask the question to get it on the record. Can you tell me about how many Delmarva employees are impacted by this legislation and where they might live? And I know there might be estimates here, but I represent 3 counties, Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset County. And I just also wanted to just better understand the possible impact of, we talk about, I often talk about I want to keep our talent local, and by that I not only mean in the state of Maryland, I mean on the Eastern Shore. So I just want to know if that affects in any way recruitment of kind of that higher, those higher tech positions.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for that question. So I do have those numbers. So I do know in those 3 counties, we do have about 150 employees. So I would say that's a significant number of employees in those 3 counties. And then in terms of the talent question, I will turn that over to Felicia because she can speak to that specifically.
Thank you, Senator. So as you know, we do have a highly skilled workforce. And what I would say is it would limit the ability for us to attract, because now we're not only competing within the utility sector, we are also competing with technology, energy, and the broader sector, because our skilled technicians, for example, are now being recruited by Amazon, Google, and others who are looking for those to manage their data load and capacity planning from an engineering perspective. I also want to point out that our median employee salary, as noted and disclosed in our proxy, is $147,000. That's our median salary. So we do pay sustaining wages for our employees and their families. Thank you.
Just one follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Yep,
I just
absolutely.
wanted to better understand when you talked about the other industries, the competition there. Is that increasing now with
Yes.
data centers and?
Yes, data centers and people who have large facilities where there's more drain on capacity and load. They need our technician and our specific skill sets. As you know, not only our employees but the broader labor market. So now there's limited supply. So there's a lot of demand for that skill.
Okay. Thank you, and thanks for being able to respond to trying to bring it home to my district. Thanks.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Senator Washington.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think I want to ask you about another section of the bill. That would be on page 4, section E, where it's saying that they should adopt a company-wide policy placing reasonable cost limits on expenditures. Do you have a problem with setting reasonable for entertainment, office, transportation, staff, performances, and those types of things?
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate that inquiry. That is already something that we do, and actually my team tracks and manages that. And we disclose those items in particular for our named executive officers. So any personal use of aircraft, any corporate memberships or anything like that, those things are already excluded. And
They're excluded from what?
From what we pass along from a recovery perspective to rates specifically. We do not pass along those costs.
Okay, all right. So, but there are, for each utility, there is a policy and that's set, and that's something that's public.
Yes.
Yeah, we actually don't see any concerns with this section because of that reason.
Okay,
Yeah, thanks for asking it.
Okay, and then just again to really understand the Part D, and I think I want to really hear from you, because I don't see the bill really as challenging the ability of a public service company to pay what it believes it needs to pay to get the best talent. I don't think that that's the issue. So it has to do with recovering that cost.
Right. And so
let's focus on where the recovery of the cost would come from. So I'd like to hear the argument. I'd like to hear where it is not in the public interest, the ratepayer interest, to limit how much of a cost can be attributed to the rates. That's the bill. That's what I want to understand.
And Senator Washington, I just want to say too, for the record, we completely agree with everyone that we all have to work together and do all we can to reduce these customer bills. So just know we share that concern. To your question, what I think is really important to recognize is that the PSC has given those directives to prevent what can be recovered through rates versus what has to go to shareholders. I know it was referenced earlier that might not have happened, but I would encourage folks to look at order number 83907 and order 86060. And basically what that says is that when you think of incentive compensation, all that can be recovered through rates are at those activities or performance that's tied to direct customer benefit. So that's the safety, that's the reliability. And then what has to be recovered through shareholders is any incentive tied to net income, earnings per share, or Exelon stock performance. That has to go to shareholders.
That's great. But the amount of that is what I think we're talking about, not whether you can do it. And I get that, and that's a clear
Great question.
Statement.
Yeah.
But so that's where I think we are. And if we focus on the senator's bill about, look, understand that you do that order, also an order isn't law. And just a portion, only a portion of that should be attributed to rates.
So if I may, thank you, Senator, for the inquiry. If I may, from a compensation perspective, and even, as I think about how we manage our total rewards here at Exelon, we have a stated compensation philosophy in our disclosures where we target market median, meaning that we need to be able to compete from a market perspective in our various geographies for talent. So I think that, one, establishes a great place from a disciplinary standpoint. So we are not paying egregious salaries, right? Our shareholders will notice that too. Right. So I think that's not only something that our customers will notice, but our shareholders as well. So when we are looking to from a market perspective, because we disclose all of our compensation ranges for all of our roles are posted, right? So if we don't have programs that are relevant, that meet the moment from a base salary perspective and an annual incentive. Earlier, one of the folks was reading what we offer from a bonus perspective. Those incentive targets are reviewed on an annual basis to ensure that we're still paying a competitive target amount. And bonuses are prevalent as we think about attracting and recruiting and retaining and motivating our professional staff.
Yeah.
So when we...
I just want to say I agree. I'll just end that it's about the recovery of whatever that amount is. So this isn't a compensation. You have the right to compensate whatever. We're really focused on how much of that compensation should be attributed, could count into when you're saying we've got to raise our rates, et cetera, because we're paying this. It's easier to explain, hey, we need to raise our rates because we've got to fix our lines. We've got to get larger lines. We've got to open up new substations. We've got to, improve delivery. Like all those things are, I think, in our minds, and we know that that's really expensive, that could be passed along because there is a benefit to the consumer.
Yeah,
The part that really is mostly about the other side of the business, the profit side of the business, all of that, some of it should be attributed, but not all. So that's what I want to understand.
And Senator, one thing I will add is part of the reasons of being a regulated monopoly is that employee labor is a core unavoidable cost of providing safe and reliable utility service. And regulated utilities are allowed to recover prudent costs from customers who receive that service. So, that is part of the model. So, and we are allowed to recover that, and that is part of being a regulated monopoly in the state of Maryland. So.
Okay, let's go to sponsor, Senator Hester, and I'm going to go Senator Brooks, then Senator Watson's. Senator Hester?
So in 2024, Exelon paid out $1.5 billion in dividends. Is there anything in this bill that would prevent you from paying the exact same salaries and compensation you're currently paying, but just reducing slightly the dividends that you pay out? Is there something in the bill that says you cannot do that?
Yeah, I don't think the bill is explicit. It's just saying what cannot be recovered through rates.
Exactly. So you guys can pay the exact same rates, the exact same thing, and you're taking the excessive compensation over $250,000 and shifting it like all the other Fortune 500 companies do so that it comes out of your profits. I do have a second question.
May I respond to that?
No.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
That wasn't a question, that was a statement. My question is, my question is around the examples that you gave of the linemen and the two examples that you just gave. Do either of those make over $250,000, and would they be impacted by the bill?
Yeah, so one thing I want to address in the bill is you're saying the base pay of the highest paid commissioner. That's base pay. This bill says total compensation. So that's not just our base pay. That's looking into incentive compensation. It's looking into pension, 401k matches, tuition reimbursement. So it is not that difficult to get up to that $250 or $250,000 figure when you account that. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. And we keep saying this $250,000 figure that's deemed as excessive. Would love to know who's making that determination. And are we looking at the skills and the years of experience and the education that our folks like sitting behind me have?
Would you be willing to provide the data that Delegate Fraser Hidalgo asked for last week? How many of your employees make over this $250,000 and how it is broken out?
Yes.
May I ask for additional clarity around what you define as compensation? Because I'm, as a compensation professional, base and incentives and cash are considered compensation. And from my perspective, when you start talking about other things, those look like benefits. So it would be good to understand what are we actually trying to capture and how we're defining excessive. Because excessive to me means beyond market. So I would want to understand what excessive, how we're framing
I will
excessive.
circle back with the vice chair of the E&T committee and ask him how he would like for more specificity on his question.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Senator Brooks, and then we'll go to Senator Watson.
Thanks, Chair. To Ms. Cummings, the compensation specialist. I guess you say for other large IOUs and investor-owned utilities, how does Exelon fall within that range? Because we were talking about the salary for Mr. Butler, CEO. How does that fall in range with somebody like a Duke Energy, a Southern Company, a Dominion?
Yeah, so we do have a disclosed group of comparators, and Excel, Duke, Southern, all of the individual or investor-owned, utilities that you referenced are a part of that comparator group. And Mr. Butler's salary falls at the market median. That, again, and we review our comparator information on an annual basis, and our compensation committee and the board not only approve Mr. Butler's salary, they look at the outcomes both on the investor side and on our annual incentive plan or our bonus to determine what his payout should be. So we follow a high level of discipline and governance practice and prudence in order to not only set the salary for Mr. Butler, but also to approve the outcomes.
Okay. Now that $9 million he got here, that's a stock award. So
Yes.
that's not uncommon in the industry? Or?
No, and that's reflective of a 3-year performance plan. Okay. So that $9 million, that is going to be paid per the performance of a 3-year plan, a 3-year long-term incentive plan that is covered by the shareholders.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Senator Watson, you're good? Okay. Any additional questions for this panel? Okay. Seeing none. Thank you. Our final witness on the bill is coming from the Public Service Commission. Mr. Baker, why don't you come on up here? And you are signed up purely for information purposes. And given that, we're I guess we're not going to put you on the clock. Just give us your presentation, and then we'll take questions. And you're the final witness here, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chair, Vice Chair, Ben Baker, Senior Commission Advisor at the Maryland Public Service Commission. Today providing informational testimony on SB 2. In summary, the bill is doing 3 things. 1, it would eliminate from cost recovery and rates bonuses for new employees. 2, it would cap supervisor pay at 110% of the max commissioner's salary. And 3, the board has to create some reasonable cost limits. I was going to mostly just speak today as to what the commission does in rate cases with these today, and I'll also maybe try and address some of the questions I've heard. So for bonuses, we do basically, that is reviewed in a base rate case, and if it's determined that those bonuses are being handed out for things that are benefiting the shareholder, meeting like dividends and all that good jazz, we would say that's not appropriate for cost recovery. They need to be tied to customer benefit metrics such as reliability. I would also like to point out we are not re-reviewing bonuses every single year. So it's in the rate case that is reviewed, the rates are set and they stay set until the next rate case. So sometimes there's confusion around that. Witnesses are always welcome to bring any issue they want to the commission's attention for determination if it should be included in rates, which could include salaries. And so basically the utility book is open the entire case. People can say, here's what I think is not just and reasonable. They will provide their arguments to the commission. The commission will say yay or nay, and that's what ends up being the rate case order on the issue. Let's see. So there was a question about what is just and reasonable. So, and that's a legal term. So to start out, I am not a lawyer. But generally we are looking for, is the item used and useful? Was it necessary for service? There will be discussion around what was the cost of the item. Is that appropriate? And these are all used by the witnesses to build a record to say, yes, I think that cost should go into base rates, or no, I do not think it should go into base rates. And so, yes, there is a value judgment that is happening there when that is happening, but anyone is allowed to bring those arguments to the commission, and then we have to determine that. It is also guided by the rules you give us here, and you can and you have said, here's certain things I don't want in base rates. And some of that happened last year. Yeah, so we are guided by that. Our authority is derived from from what you tell us through this green book here. And yeah, I would just note, yes, I think there's a point made that compensation in the bill is broader than base pay, which is what we are capping what can go into rates. That is not saying they can't pay it, but that just create a risk for the utility on that end. With that, you have our written testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Let's go right to the sponsor of the bill, Senator Hester.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. I know you work extremely hard for the PSC and appreciate you being here today. I'm just curious if this bill will help in your efforts to ensure that executive pay is prudent and not excessive. Does it provide the extra clarity that you might need to do this?
So you're setting your policy as saying, we do not want, and this is covering both supervisor and executive, so the definition is more than just what we might think of C-suite. And you're saying we do not want that salary to go above X, and so in a rate case, we would say, give us the data that shows, like basically if anything above this is not going to be built into the base rate. So that would just make it from, yes, that'd make the rate case easier in that regard. We will not be debating it. Versus in a rate case, there would be different metrics. If somebody didn't like it, they could say, well, we think executive pay maybe should be based off of X, Y, and Z, and then we would have to examine if that is correct, maybe based off of market metrics. But you have the power to tell us what you think is in or not in. And so that would be, and so that's, I guess, in that argument, you're making it easier to try the case. It is taking away whatever, if that metric should be based off something else, we will not be able to go above that number.
Okay, additional questions for Mr. Baker? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bill hearing on Senate Bill 2. And that concludes the bill hearings for today. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the committee, so we have a voting list that you should have received. Let's take a 15-minute break and let's come back here and knock out a voting list. Come back here about 3:45 and then we'll work our way through that list.